Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, March 29th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma, in for Maya Trabulsi. We start tonight with new information on those migrant girls now being sheltered at the convention center. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services confirms to us that 33 of those girls have tested positive for COVID-19. 27 of the cases reported before arrival and 6 confirmed after rapid testing. They're being housed in a separate area. This is several more hundred are set to arrive tonight. Max Rivlin-Nather begins our coverage.
The convention center will shelter exclusively teenage girls and will eventually hold 1,450 migrants. Health and Human Services officials expect they'll stay at the shelter for at least 30 to 35 days. Kathy Lembo is the executive director of South Bay Community Services, which is now known as SBCS. The organization will coordinate support for the migrants and help them reunite with their families in the U.S. or a sponsor.
Their top need is contact their families. The girls are really wanting to get to the end of their journey.
Lembo says that her organization, in coordination with local institutions like Rady's Children's Hospital and the County Department of Education, will help make sure the girls are healthy, learning, and cared for well in San Diego. They'll get health checks, have time for recreation, and get ready for life inside the United States.
What was wonderful about the San Diego shelter is the people who actually do this work locally are getting to do it for these young people.
On Saturday, elected officials from the city, county, and federal government toured the facility as thousands of migrant children continue to arrive at the border, mostly in Texas. The federal government is currently scrambling workers to that area in an effort to limit the amount of time children spend in overcrowded Border Patrol facilities. Congressional Representative Scott Peters said moving these children to the convention center is a humanitarian response to a much larger issue.
This is not the answer to immigration reform, right? This is not the answer to asylum reform, but it is, or even the answer for hundreds of girls who will rest their heads here over the next few months. They're going to have a tough journey. But my colleagues here before you are happy for this act of compassion, and we're all committed to solving the bigger problem.
For community members looking to help out with the migrants, SBCS has started a fund on its website for helping the children after they leave government custody.
We can give them some money to do something like buy a bed, buy clothes, buy extra linens and towels, because remember, these girls aren't going to wealthy families. They're going to hardworking people here in the United States.
People can also volunteer at the shelter through SBCS. The convention center will remain in use as a shelter through July 15th, after which it plans on hosting its first convention since the start of the coronavirus pandemic. Max Rivlin-Nather, KPBS News.
Migrants leaving everything to make the journey to the U.S. is nothing new, and there are many reasons why they do so. Still, hearing from them directly offers better insight on this issue. Coming up, we'll go to Texas and hear from some of those border crossers and the law enforcement who are keeping watch. As those children arrive in San Diego, they're getting a shelter and a support system. Multiple local groups are teaming up to provide an education to these teenagers during their stay. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong continues our coverage.
Close to 700 teenage girls from various countries in Latin America are being provided temporary shelter at the convention center as of Monday night. The migrant children, who are between 13 and 17 years old, will be provided with an education in English and the arts for the duration of their stay, which will last through July. Roberto Carrillo is a principal at the San Diego County Office of Education's Juvenile Court and Community Schools.
So definitely supports an English, acquisition of English. Definitely want to start introducing them into the arts and the visual arts and performing arts. and also give them the opportunity to start expressing themselves through written formats, giving them basic understanding of the English language.
Carrillo says about 13 teachers from districts all over San Diego have volunteered to work with the migrant students.
Just writing, poetry, that's all focused on just giving them the opportunity to have that outlet. I don't necessarily know their individual stories, but I could imagine it can just be a lot of difficulty. They've experienced many difficulties, which, for the reasons why they're here.
Instruction will start as soon as Tuesday once the youth have all arrived and settled in.
Young people just got here. They're still arriving from what I understand. So it gives us an opportunity to kind of put everything together. So when we're ready to go, we hit the ground running and provide the best possible program that we can for them.
Carrillo says community members who want to support these educational efforts should contact South Bay Community Services or the San Diego County Office of Education. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
San Dieguito school officials are holding a special meeting right now, working to reaffirm their reopening plans. Meantime, today, middle and high school students in the Carlsbad Unified School District went back to class full-time, 5 days a week. Parents can still opt for distance learning if they choose. A recent court ruling ordered schools in Carlsbad, San Dieguito, Poway, Oceanside, San Marcos, and Vista to reopen to the greatest extent possible and at a practicable time. Earlier today, President Biden announced 90% of adults will be eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine by mid-April. Locally, there will soon be more places to get the vaccine. Melissa May tells us about the news sites.
The Mountain View Educational Complex in Southeast San Diego is one of 3 new vaccine sites opening this week. This site will open Tuesday morning with the ability to deliver 500 vaccines. And health officials say it can ramp up to 1,000 vaccines a day. The new clinics are opening in areas most affected by the pandemic. A second clinic will be in Escondido and also opens tomorrow. The third will open in Sherman Heights on Wednesday. County Supervisor Nora Vargas notes that it's also Cesar Chavez Day.
If anything, we know that he fought every day for workers, and that's who is the heart of this community, our working families. And so I'm excited that we're going to be able to bring this particular pilot program to them.
Later this week, vaccine eligibility opens up to those 50 and over. Vargas says the county had already started to prepare for that increase.
Our goal is to create an infrastructure that's really well run so that when the vaccines get here, everybody gets a vaccine in their arm who wants a vaccine.
But supply remains a challenge. The vaccine superstation at the Del Mar Fairgrounds will be closed on Wednesday and next weekend because of a low number of vaccines delivered to Scripps Health. Dr. Ghazala Sharif is Chief Medical Officer of Scripps Health. She is optimistic about administering the vaccine.
We are very hopeful. We think that if we get the vaccines that are promised, what I'm hearing through our routes of communication is that we should almost get double what we're currently receiving as a state by the middle of April. If that's the case, we can really start running with a vaccination program.
Dr. Sharif says the Del Mar Superstation can handle the increase in vaccine eligibility.
Our goal is to get to 10,000 vaccines a day.
County officials say about 20% of San Diegans 16 and older are fully immunized. Melissa May, KPBS News.
Our local vaccine situation is always changing with updated locations and supply. We're tracking it all at kpbs.org with our vaccine dashboard. You can get there by clicking on the vaccines link on our homepage. We also have the latest numbers showing just how many San Diegans have received their first and second doses. A staggering new COVID-19 death toll out of Mexico. Government officials now saying it's 60% higher than the number originally reported. More than 321,000 are dead rather than the 201,000, pushing Mexico past Brazil, which had been second to the United States. Despite the recent progress, the director of the CDC is speaking in blunt terms when it comes to the threat that still exists. That's because some parts of the country are seeing a rise in new cases.
I'm going to pause here. I'm going to lose the script, and I'm going to reflect on the recurring feeling I have of impending doom. We have so much to look forward to, so much promise and potential of where we are, and so much reason for hope. But right now, I'm scared. I'm speaking today not necessarily as your CDC director, or not only as your CDC director, but as a wife, as a mother, as a daughter, to ask you to just please hold on a little while longer. I so badly want to be done. I know you all so badly want to be done. We are just almost there, but not quite yet.
That's a note of caution from Dr. Rochelle Walensky. San Diego County's cases have stayed relatively low, but nationally we've seen a spike of about 15% over the past week. One sign that people might be letting their guard down is at our airports. The TSA reported more than 1.5 million flyers on Sunday, which is a new pandemic record. 10 months ago, the death of a black man in Minneapolis killed under the knee of a white police officer set off a wave of protests across America, including here in San Diego. Now the murder trial is underway. Camilla Bernal wraps up a day that started with opening statements.
Inside a Minneapolis courtroom,
this case is not about split-second decision-making.
The murder trial for Derek Chauvin started with the state laying out their case against the former Minneapolis police officer, showing the jury 9 minutes and 29 seconds of bystander video of George Floyd being held on the ground by Chauvin's knee.
You will see that he does not let up and that he does not get up. Even when Mr. Floyd does not even have a pulse, it continues on.
Prosecutor Jerry Blackwell telling jurors it's clear Floyd's death was a homicide and matches the patterns of someone who dies from oxygen deficiency.
You'll see him when he goes unconscious, and you'll be able to see the uncontrollable shaking he's doing when he's not breathing anymore.
Defense lawyer Eric Nelson paints a different picture of what happened that day in May, telling jurors officers struggled to arrest Floyd and that the use of force is a necessary part of policing.
Derek Chauvin did exactly what he had been trained to do over the course of his 19-year career.
During the arrest, Nelson says Floyd put drugs in his mouth in an effort to conceal them from police.
Mr. Floyd died of a cardiac arrhythmia that occurred as a result of hypertension, his coronary disease, the ingestion of methamphetamine and fentanyl, and the adrenaline flowing through his body.
Camila Bernal, KPBS News.
The Marines have the fewest number of women of any service. One of their recruiting campaigns once boasted that all they wanted was a few good men. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says integrating boot camp is only one of the hurdles the Corps faces to fully open the service.
The first class of female recruits are a third of the way through training in San Diego, part of a congressionally mandated march to become the last service to integrate boot camp. They've gone through pool exercises and scaled obstacles in the confidence course. One obstacle for their leaders, keeping these women once they prove themselves and then finding more like them, women who want to become U.S. Marines. Leah Booth was a Marine from 2004 to 2009.
And it's a profound transformation. I gotta say, I had a blast at boot camp. It's super hard. Obviously, it's physical, it's challenging. You don't get a ton of sleep. You're always on the move.
A crew chief on a helicopter. On her second tour in Iraq, Booth remembers running out of her helicopter when another copter flipped on takeoff, spilling the crew and a couple dozen Marines across a field.
I remember moving the FLIR off a guy and telling him, help was on the way.
Women make up to close to 20% of the Navy. The number of women in the Marines is just under half of that. Despite foot-dragging on integrating boot camp, the last two commandants of the Marine Corps have publicly vowed to increase the number of women in the Corps. Booth says one reason why there aren't more women is many of the most recognizable jobs, or MOSs, in the Marines had been closed to women.
You can do every job that a guy does, with a few exceptions in the Air Force. But the main MOS in the Marine Corps, a woman couldn't do up until really recently.
The Corps is also the only service to fight the Secretary of Defense's decision to open up all combat roles to women in 2015. Compared with the Army, a relative handful of women have combat roles in the Marines. Sergeant Leah Engdahl is one of a few female Marine recruiters. Most Marines come right out of high school. Their image of the Corps comes straight out of video games.
I think it really just kind of boils down to Call of Duty and things like that, seeing what's on TV.
Most jobs in the Marines are not combat-related, Ingdahl says. That image of the Corps actually makes it harder to recruit a broader pool of women. Recruiters often spend months getting both men and women into shape before they ship out. One of Sergeant Ingdahl's recruits is among the first class of women being trained in San Diego.
She kind of had it set in her mind that she wanted to be a United States Marine. She just was a little bit concerned about maybe the physical aspect of things. And the way that I prepared her was we would actually meet here at the office 2 to 3 times a week, and we would physically train to get ready.
Marines and veterans say the bond that starts at boot camp lasts a lifetime, even through hardship, and sometimes even through betrayal. Julie Weber started serving in 1996.
In my first duty station, I was raped, and I was not supported by anybody in my unit. At least nobody whose opinion mattered.
The specter of sexual assault looms over the Marines, which typically lead the services in the number of assault and harassment allegations.
Is it an anchor and globe?
Yeah.
Weber has a tattoo on her forearm of the globe and anchor, the symbol of the Marines. She says she got it after she left the Corps in 2012 after a second enlistment. As she struggled through law school, she wanted a daily reminder of what she could accomplish.
I try to always support my brothers and sisters, and that's even outside of the Marine Corps. I try to support people who need it. And I don't think I was always this way, but the Marine Corps kind of made me that way. And I am strong because of them.
The Marines' warrior tradition is built at boot camp. Advocates say integrating the sexes is an opportunity for the Corps to finally recognize that the strength and determination instilled in the beginning doesn't just apply to the men. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
At the start of the newscast, we showed you the latest from the San Diego Convention Center. That's where unaccompanied migrant girls are being sheltered as they make their way through the immigration system. Rosa Flores is in Texas with a look at the long journey for desperate families.
Hola. This is what the Biden administration has not allowed America to see. To tell this story, we were escorted by Texas state troopers. Lines of migrants on Texas trails along the Rio Grande. Nancy is pregnant and cried describing her painful journey from Honduras. Ronnie says his family fled Honduras due to devastation from 2 recent hurricanes. And under this bridge, even more lines of migrants. Their silhouettes beyond the trees, a sign America's immigration system is overwhelmed.
Please stand, thank you.
During his first formal press conference, President Biden said,
I will commit to transparency.
And while one pool news camera was allowed inside an HHS facility for unaccompanied migrant children this week, it was a sanitized version of reality, far removed from the bottleneck of this border processing facility. U.S. Customs and Border Protection releasing their own video this week. CNN's repeated requests for access to immigration processing facilities have been denied. The day we captured this video, Texas state troopers were our guides.
As soon as they make landfall, that's considered the U.S. side for us.
The cartels will...
Sent here by Governor Greg Abbott earlier this month to thwart smugglers.
It's a way to suffocate and put a lot of pressure on the cartel.
Victor Escalon is the top cop in charge of what Abbott calls Operation Lone Star.
As Border Patrol gets tied up with processing migrants that come across, they'll leave miles at times open on the river.
That's where Texas steps in, by water, air, and by ground, says Escalon, to fill the gaps of security on the Rio Grande. According to state troopers, if you look closely in between those trees, you'll see a camp, some sort of staging area on the Mexican side. I'm on the U.S. side, and this is one of the hot spots they described, an area, a trail that is used by migrants, and you can clearly see the path. The landscape is peppered with evidence that it is used by migrants. We see clothes, documents, masks, all leading to these dirt trails with arrows pointing migrants to the immigration processing center under the bridge. Nancy says feeling hungry for two was the worst part of the journey. Honduras. While most of the migrants I met said they made the trek to the U.S. Because they were poor, this little girl was rich in faith. Ending our conversation by saying thanks and God bless you.
KPBS will cover this story as it develops. One place to find all of our stories is the KPBS YouTube page. You can also live stream KPBS Evening Edition and watch past shows. Travel sites Airbnb and Vrbo are reporting a spike in online reservations. Vrbo, which stands for Vacation Rentals by Owner, is off to its best start in a quarter century. Airbnb is up more than 20% following the company's successful initial public offering in 2020. Airbnb's hosts have earned a combined $1 billion since the pandemic began last year. Meanwhile, Expedia's stock, which owns Vrbo, has soared more than 30%. Bookings for Travelocity, Orbitz, and Hotwire are starting to bounce back. Some of those bookings might be for San Diego in November, when Comic-Con brings back a scaled-down convention. Promoters have announced a 3-day in-person Comic-Con special edition to take place over the Thanksgiving weekend. That's November 26th through the 28th. The fall event will allow the organization to highlight all the great elements that make Comic-Con so popular. It will also generate much-needed revenue, not only for the organization, but also for local businesses. Specific details are still being worked out. It was a hot weekend and a reminder that winter is over. The past few months have been dry, and that means the arrival of spring won't be as vibrant as years past. Nicole Comstock has a story from Lake Elsinore.
If you're looking for purple petals or a few yellow flowers, you'll find them here in the hills of Lake Elsinore. But this is the only little sprig of bright orange California poppies we found blooming in Walker Canyon.
I was wondering, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? So it's not, huh?
It certainly doesn't seem so. The epic super blooms of years past that covered 1,600 acres of hillsides along the 15 freeway as early as February drew hundreds of thousands of visitors to the area, and jammed up traffic for miles are nowhere to be found. This is an aerial view from 2019, and this is an aerial view from today.
Oh, that's so sad.
We get a feeling Lake Elsinore resident Rebecca Kazelka will run into far fewer Instagram photographers out here in 2021, since the backdrop is a bunch of dry brush. Here's why. By SoCal standards, 2019 was a pretty impressive year for rainfall. We got about 20 inches of rain that winter, compared to only about 4 1/4 inches of rain this winter. Elevated wind and cooler temperatures also helped the 2019 super bloom take root.
I took so many photos. The dog sitting in the middle of them, pictures of me sitting down in them, you know.
But back then, so many people followed suit, the city shut down access to the canyon.
The first week it bust out, I drove to church. It took me an hour and a half to get home, because I kept trying different routes. They were blocked.
Come to think of it, Rebecca and her dog Base don't miss the poppies and the problems that came with them all that much. They still enjoy their walks through the canyon.
We just like to be out, but the flowers were just a plus.
Reporting in Lake Elsinore, Nicole Comstock, KCAL 9 News.
Our winds will be shifting this week, and that will bring some changes in our weather with the onshore flow overnight into Tuesday morning. Plenty of low clouds, but we should start to clear it out as the winds shift more into the north. And with that, we'll see the return of the Santa Ana wind, especially Tuesday night into Wednesday morning should be very windy. And the temperatures will be on the rise too. It's like quite a warm up here coming by Wednesday and Thursday, and that spreads into the interior by the end of the week. Here's a look at our temperatures overnight and early in the morning. Oceanside's down to 48, San Diego 55, some clouds rolling in. Ramona's down to 40, Mount Laguna a low of 50. For the day on Tuesday, we'll lose the onshore flow. We'll see clearing, and then the winds will start to increase from the north. Here's a look at our temperatures as we take you through the day. We're up to 80 in Escondido and 81 in Ramona, 82 in El Cajon, so it's starting to warm up here. Borrego Springs 83 and Campo 71, Oceanside, San Diego at 69. During the day on Wednesday, should be quite warm here, and the warmth will be expanding inland for the end of the week. So as we take a look at our extended temperatures for you, there you can see Tuesday, clouds, breezy, then sunshine. And then there's the warm-up. Look at that, Wednesday and Thursday. Friday into the weekend, we'll start to see some onshore flow returning. Inland sections, upper 80s Wednesday, 90 Thursday, then the temperatures start to back off. As we take you into the mountains, strong winds Tuesday, and then with sunshine, we'll see some pleasant weather Friday into Saturday, and in the deserts, lots of sunshine. A little windy there Tuesday, but check out Friday and Saturday. It's getting hot. And for KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, warning signs. The head of the CDC voices concern as COVID cases, hospitalizations, and deaths are on the rise. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Rent relief for San Diegans. Millions of dollars are pouring in for several programs. Find out why getting landlords to participate has been a challenge. And on Midday Edition, ending cash bail. The California Supreme Court ruling that advocates say will help efforts to reform the criminal justice system. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us and have a great evening.
Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.